Okay, why did I start with the last two questions? It is because I'm looking on the perspective of these two aspects of social life on the question we're talking about this afternoon. The social threefoldness in the social work and the pedagogical work. There's a very special place there, and waste to quality, where I come from. I'll introduce myself in a minute. This really depends very much on pedagogical work and social work. To my personal background, I just mentioned it. It was in the 1980s, quite a while ago, when I had to leave one school after the other because they didn't really like me there, and my grades went low. And then finally I found a Waldorf school, and in Waldorf school I met teachers who really did get in contact with me as a person who did want to develop himself. And that was a real great experience. So in the last 4 years I really did get the curve, as we said in Germany. I managed to finish school. And afterwards, in Germany, in these times, we had to do the civil services. I had 20 months it was, and I started to do it in a Camp Hill-like community in southern Germany for about 20 months, and then I went to Camp Hill-Kopek, and there I finished my seminar for social therapy, and then I traveled around a bit. So this is where I got most of my English-speaking experiences, but this ended in 1990, so quite some time ago. Then I did do something completely different. I went into journalism. I was a journalist in German newspapers and German radio for about 12 years. Then I founded a small magazine in Germany as well. And then I did get in contact again with anthroposophical initiatives, cultural initiatives, as well as social initiatives. And I made the public relations for them, and the advertisements for them, and so on. And so I did get in contact into one community in southern Germany, Tennenthal, a place like a village community, but not a village community. I supported them in their public relations and made advertisements for them and so on. And then they wanted to have an image brochure, a brochure about their own image, and to make a new website and so on. That was a time when they all made their first websites. Internet was invented. And I asked them one quite simple question. What is your image? What are you standing for? What would miss the world if you weren't there? And this started a process which really had an impact on the whole organization. And in these times, this organization, Tennenthal, was already working with waste to quality, Wege zur Qualität. So far, until then, it was a rather theoretical working with Wege zur Qualität. They have had these impulses, they have had these working groups and so on. They were studying, but it didn't get into the daily life. But bringing these two things together, having a real question, what would miss in the world if we weren't there, on the one hand, on the other hand, the tools of waste equality to bring them together. That was really a great moment, and I have had the luck, the pleasure to be there in the right moment. So it developed then in the 2 years later, I was the general manager of the whole place. The developing and the change processes was going so deep that they really realized that there had to be a generational change from the responsible persons and so on. And so I've been then there for 10 years at this place as a general manager. Lived all the time together in a house community with people, with so-called handicapped people. And in 2018 I left Tennenthal again. And since then, but also before, I was asked to how shall I say, to kind of accompany other communities who are more or less at the same spot. They realize we need some development into the future. We're coming from the past. We still have real wealthy and great things. We earned with that, but there are now questions for the future, and we need to develop ourselves again. And so I'm accompanying these communities since then. And this is and this I do out of the background of waste to quality. And since then I'm as well, there's a so-called Stiftungsrat, a foundation council in waste to quality with 7 people who I'm in since 3 years and so on. So it's rather close and tense meanwhile when we work with waste to quality. And so there was a contact, waste to quality was asked if someone can come, and I am the one who lives most in the south, and I'm the one who's living closest to Dornach, so I was asked to come, and so I came.
You're saying waste quality?
Waste. Wege. Wait. One way to waste. Not waste. Not waste. Not waste.
Waste quality.
Waste. Wave.
Oh, not wasted quality.
Not wasted quality.
I'm so lost, okay.
It's like pathways to quality. Pathways, ways to ways.
Waste. Okay.
Sorry.
Well, it's an important intervention. Could get the whole afternoon in a different direction.
Wow, we solved the waste problem.
No? Yeah, and yeah, so any questions so far to me as a person that's all 55 years old, to children?
Maybe you can say what is waste to quality.
Yeah, what it is?
Yeah.
Yes, I will. I will. Yes, that is the next step now. Right. In 1990, 1992, 1993, there was an impulse from the Swiss government to ask the social initiatives to establish a quality management system. It was a time when quality management worldwide were invented and implemented in so many different places. ISO certifications, you might know, international standards organization and so on, ISO 9001, 9002 and so on. And in the whole productive sphere, in the economical sphere, it became a standard. In parallel, there was, in the 1980s already, began a new thinking in the world. It was called the so-called New Public Management. It started from England and spread out all over the world. New Public Management made a change, a real change, in the minds and also in the social, you might say a social contract, a contract which people in a whole country, in a community and so on, they have a contract about how to support people who are not able to take part in the same way or to contribute to the economical sphere as others do. Old people, children, sick people, ill people, handicapped people and so on. Some people say you can recognize the value of society by the way how they deal with their weakness. This, and until the 1980s, it was quite normal that the supporting system for these people, for these groups of people, have been something that's, by the way, the last 2 days, Google Translator was my best friend, But this word, there was no translation for it. In Germany, it's called Daseinsfürsorge. It's something that a society thinks is taking care that some things are there which everyone needs to be able to live in such a society. Public transport, roads, and so on, the healthcare system, and so on. All these things were normal that a society provides these things, and these were paid out of taxes. They were just there. Museums as well, schools as well. And all of a sudden, the idea came up to give some of these things a price, to pay for it in a different way as they did it before. That was called New Public Management. Can you follow me so far?
Mhm.
Okay. If sometimes you get lost, you can interrupt me anytime. Okay, when you've got a question or when you don't understand something and so on. Please feel invited to interrupt me if you've got the impulse to do so.
Daseinsvorsorge ist öffentlich. Es ist immer
Öffentlich, yeah, that
This
was
would be public goods.
public goods. Yeah.
Public goods would be all infrastructure, but also anything that's in the public domain for everyone in society.
Yes, right. And this is something where we will come. So, looking on the different countries, things have developed before the 1980s as well, differently. But then it came, especially in the Western countries and the countries in the Western Hemisphere, an economical view on these things came along. Schools were suddenly, free schools, independent schools were suddenly paid according to how many children are sitting in the classroom. It was, earlier years it was different. There was a class, and the class was an invitation for children to come in, and the classroom, and the class, and the school system was paid, and all of a sudden the school had to take care that every classroom is really full, that all the places are used and so on. And this was really a mind changer, but it was a slow mind changer which came in. And then in the 1990s, suddenly there was the idea of quality management system. The Swiss social initiatives had to document that there was a certain quality in what they did. And then they stood up and said, no, that can't be. You can't put standards and equalization to the work we're doing. There is no ISO standard for social work. It's not possible. And they found together, and here, about 300 meters away from here, Hochdieweg, HFS, the high school for social work here in Dornach. There was the first meeting, and there from ways to quality started. And this was the idea to say it is not possible to describe and document the quality of what is happening in this magical room between two beings. And pedagogical work as well as social work is happening in such a kind of magic room. This is a closed room. It's a real protected room where two beings or a class teacher with his class are meeting and they're starting a process together. For instance, you're working in a care home. In a care home, I used to work there as well. It's a normal, simple task. It is, you've got the task to wake up some people who are living there in the morning. You can describe which outer aspects have to be respected, you have to be aware of to do your job good. But what happens when you're opening the door of the room, of the sleeping room, and you say, "Hey Timmy, wake up." You can't give a standard to this. This happens between these two people. And all what's developing from that moment on happens between these people. And the one morning, Tim is waking up and everything is great, everything is fine, you can have fun with him. The other day, he won't wake up and you have to support him and you have to find ideas to bring him out of bed. Some other day, humor might be the right instrument and so on. The other way, whatever. Each morning, each situation asks for new answers to this situation. And so, this is a very small example, but the small example should show that you can't put standards on this, and this is what the whole social work is about. The teacher as well. Every teacher knows and has an idea what to teach his or her class during the day, of course. But still, the class is part of that's what's happening in this morning at school. And the teacher has to respond to it. It has to work with it. It has to give answers on it. So, and sometimes maybe one day teacher says, okay, nothing about what I've prepared for today is important now. I have to focus on something completely different. And he must have all the right in the world to do so. Because that's what the work of a teacher is about. Not everybody is following this idea. Some people are really following the idea of learning laboratories. And they existed as well, these learning laboratories. So, what I tried to describe now, and I write it down shortly, that lead to one aspect of the social threefoldness. What's happening in the bedroom in the morning, what's happening in the classroom, is very, very much connected to the aspects of freedom, of liberty. And this is one of the core qualities of the social threefoldness. And this brought the organizations in the 1990s to the idea to develop something which is really enabling this working out of freedom, working in a sphere of freedom. Now these needs some other aspects which you have to focus on as well. And these you find in the other spheres of the social threefoldness. You have to focus on the economical sphere as well, and you have to focus on the sphere of the rights of these agreements as well. So these are the three aspects in which you're working when you're working at school, the school as a whole system, including the classrooms, or when you're working in a social initiative, in a social organization. But this was the core idea, the main idea in the 1990s, to say we have to protect this moment, this sphere of freedom to enable a work of real quality, not of standards. Can you follow so far? Okay. Shortly in between, now I just wanted to mention something that we in the waste to quality since then realize, always and again, some of the things I've said now are really coming from Switzerland, have been adopted to Germany very early. When we take it into the whole world, there are now initiatives of waste to quality in Hungary. There is one in Georgia next to Russia. the Eastern European Georgia, not the United States state. There has been one in the United States. It's not so much anymore. There is some in the United Kingdom. There is some in Finland, and so on. So in many places in the world, there are initiatives, and they realize, and depending on where you're going, you realize that the cultural background has a huge impact on working with waste to quality and this starting point I just mentioned. And this has, you said it, you read about the lecture from Steiner from 1917, and this was really given here in Central Europe as well. Yeah. And just a real short historical focus on the historical thing. We can see in the world what happened, and since 1917, it really, or since World War I, and since developing the socialism in the Eastern European part, and also in the Western sphere, in the United States, the two things that really did become so obvious in these times. And this is, in the Eastern sphere, we've got the idea of fraternity, rather, from the social three-footness, very strong in many countries. So, and this is what I just said, that these, the art of creating and living together in a society was there quite different. Still now, in many of these countries, these public goods, like healthcare system and so on, are really much more open to everybody, to anybody there. So the society is caring for their members. In Eastern Germany, when it still existed as a state until 1989, there were almost no unemployed people. There was almost no real poorness. There has been some kind of basic income which was somehow good enough for anybody who lived there. This is something which, when you go over the Atlantic to the United States, there you might find real wealthy people living next door to real poor people. You are so responsible for your own life. Completely different thinking. American healthcare system, I remember when I went over there was 30 years ago, there was a Blue Shield of New York as a kind of insurance company. I had to pay for the whole year before I was allowed to entrance to the United States in the 1990s. Because the government said, you can come and work, but if you get sick, we're not responsible for you. You can't rely on our public healthcare system. In the Eastern sphere, you've got now this fraternity idea, rather, acting like brothers, brotherly. But there's something else missing then, the idea of freedom, of liberty. Is far in the background. The possibility to say what you want and so on, the freedom of speech and so on. In many of these countries, you didn't find it for many years, and some of them are developing it right now, but it was not really the cultural signature of the Eastern European countries, and still isn't of the Far East countries like China and so on. But they have this fraternity idea. In the United States and the other Western countries, there you find the other idea. You've got this freedom of speech very strongly in the foreground, and the other things are stepping in the background. And now you can go to the Far East, where you can go to the sphere of the rights and equality and rights and so on. There you find another gap in developing a society. China has got no idea of equality of rights. There's another unbalanced situation as well. Why did I mention it? Because it's not so simple to think that everyone in a room in a situation still has got the same ideas, the same ideals, and the same interpretation of how a society has to work. There are some learned values and some learned experiences in the background, always. And you have to listen to them as well. And all of them, yeah, they're all right. They're all, should all be allowed to be there because they're all expressions of qualities of societies. They are expressions of how societies should develop, but also of their qualities. But the necessity to get in contact and to listen to everyone in each situation, what's your idea of the situation and so on. Not to get the idea that there is a standard of how a community, a society, and so on should work. It has to be balanced, it has to be developed. And we have to talk about it permanently. And this is what we had to learn in the social sphere and also in the schools in the last 20, 30 years since we work there with waste equality. Even when we've got an idea how it would be good, maybe even perfect, how it would be right, and to listen to others in the room, to other colleagues, maybe they've got another idea. So all of a sudden, all the global aspects of the historical aspects are all of a sudden in a conference room they're together. And we have to get in contact with them. People bringing their background. And their background is, yeah, these are qualities.
For example, in Japan we have a 5-day summer holiday. In the winter time, 5 days winter holiday. And that's normal standard for us. I have a question, why the 1990 it's starting in Switzerland? This kind of quality of life for this.
It depended on the it was a consequence of the step before, of the step of the new public management. When we give you money, we want that you document that you've got a quality, that you spent the money we give you in the right way. That was the connection. The logical connection, that was the next step. To say, when we give you as a social initiative money, that you then, please, you have to prove that you deserve it. That was the idea.
Because this part in Japan is very far in back still. That's why. How it's starting in celebration.
But you could see that also as a way to, in a way, be conscious of what your money is doing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it has both sides.
Yes, of course. But there's right now in the at least in Germany, I don't know how much it's in Switzerland right now. There's a big discussion about the so-called unconditioned basic income.
Universal basic income.
Universal? Okay, the universal basic income. So you don't have to fulfill any conditions or anything else to get a basic income to be able to live. And this is exactly leading to social freefallness. How, in social freefallness, money is meant to be used, as I understood it. I have to say always, as I understood it. The idea that with money you're not paying for something that someone did, or something that someone gave you, but that money is there to enable people to live a good living and to do what they want to do. It's a complete 180-degree turnaround. So when you're asking the craftsman, you need a new front door. Of course, you can calculate it and say the money is so much, the time is so much, and so on. And so in the end, he's giving you a price. And this is a normal understanding of how prices, how the money transfer is now created or made in these days. The social faithfulness turns it around. It asks the carpenter who's making the new front door, who should be, what do you need to live a good living? What do you need? What amount of money do you need to do so? And ask the one who needs the new front door, and what can you contribute to this? Of course, you have to calculate as well how much is the wood and so on, but it's a completely different thing. And in the social work, it's getting absolutely obvious.
Holger, I'm sorry, before you go further, could you clarify this point? Because what you just described was the connection between the producer and consumer coming up with a price, which actually we talked about this morning. Max, who works at the Prague Manchester, spent his morning with us. And he described a similar process of a lender and a borrower discussing a situation and coming up with an interest rate, right? And yet, but then you said before you were talking about universal basic income, which actually it's not, doesn't happen through association, but it happens through taxation and distribution, right? Did I follow right?
Yes.
Okay. But it's a different process then, right? If you get money, because like because it's not about, well, I don't know, maybe you could say more.
For me, it's the same gesture, just on different levels. On the one hand, it's between us two. I ask you for a favor, for something I need, and ask you what amount of money do you need to be able to do so.
Right.
I think, and on the other hand, is the whole society could get in the same position to enable their citizens to live a life that makes it possible to contribute what they would like to contribute, and also, of course, what the society is needing. With the other aspect, it's not the idea that everyone is becoming an artist, a free artist, and so on. No, of course, it's still the other part is to listen to the needs of the society, or to listen of the needs of the other people. Of course, social work doesn't claim to get the money for anything. The task is clear. They're taking care for a certain group of people. The teacher is taking care of his classroom. The school community is taking care of all the students and the teachers and so on. So it's not absolutely free. It's not. It's focused on a task still, but it's not the one-on-one payment of the fulfilled task. There is a disconnection necessary. But still, we in the German university system, and I think in the American universities, it's almost similar, even though the money background is different. They get their money partly according how good their students were in the exams.
In the United States, you said it's like that?
Pardon?
You said it's like that in the U.S.?
Yeah.
At the university level? No.
Oh.
No, I'll tell you later though.
Okay. No.
No, we don't have a public.
They get private money.
Exactly.
They get private
But
money.
it's not necessarily, it's not
No,
regulated by.
They made the fund,
Yeah.
but still, the fundraising is yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
There are some public universities, but
Yes.
very few.
And then you said Germany, didn't you?
Yeah.
Well, he said Germany and.
I said Germany.
And the United States.
Yeah. But sorry, that's just the side of
Yes.
You're saying that depending on how well the students do, they get more money if they're doing better.
In Germany, that's called the so-called excellence universities. There's 5 excellence universities who get a special amount of money on top because, and they depend on the grades of the exams and so on.
That's the German university student. That's true because I do study at one of those universities, but then also that is actually crucial as far as my understanding goes. So please do correct me because I think that is an interesting point. The universities get money for how many students start the semester, and it does not matter afterwards whether they finish or how they perform. They get the money for how many students they can attract, and that is actually, I don't know if you want to will be talking about this, but it's a peculiar situation, let's put it that way, in terms of which incentives are being put out there.
It's got nothing to do with the quality of what's happening in the lectures
Exactly.
and so on. So there's really a gap between the money and the real quality of what's happening.
And what do you think about this idea of the basic income? Because for me it's like the question, what does this income brings when maybe not everybody want it or not everybody needs this income. I'm very not agree with this question of the income, because maybe a person who are a millionaire, he don't need this 2,000 francs or whatever. So for me it's very dangerous, because also the thinking that everybody became the same is for me like a communistic fall, and this never goes. It don't work. So yeah, for me. But maybe my question is what you think about this.
It's a little niche where we're going now.
Yeah.
But still, I'd like to answer it as I see it. For me, it's a little system changer, which gives people dignity back.
What is
Würde.
Würde, oh yeah.
Because we've got so many supporting systems already. When you've got no income, you can ask for money for living. You can ask for money for daily costs. You can ask for supporting sending your children to school. But each time you have to go and bid for it. And each time you have to make clear, I'm in a people with a certain need and so on.
Yeah, this is good.
So the money is going there as well already. And on the other hand, with these people, I wouldn't claim it for me, of course not. But then you've got the possibility to make it in the end of the year when you're making when you're looking at the taxes people are paying. Then you can bring it in balance again.
Yeah.
So, but no one no member of the society, no member of the community, you can say as well, has to be afraid to be bidding for support.
Begging.
Begging.
Yeah.
Begging. Yes, begging is even a better word here.
I think there's another point here that also a lot of the people who really need these get. It's not only that they are the begging issues, but the huge bureaucratical hurdles are preventing them from accessing this. A lot of times these are people from migratory backgrounds that are language bureaucracy, a lot of difficulties that prevent them from being able to access those funds.
And these bureaucratic processes cost money as well.
Yeah.
All these people who are checking all these things and so on, who are giving the allowance and so on, it's expensive. It's in Germany, people, I don't know but I read it, that people calculated is that for each German citizen, it is 700 euros a month just to support this system. The wages and the salaries of the people who are working in this system of the social welfare system. So you could spend this money a little bit better and enable people to really support to community.
It's an interesting fact for y'all to know. Also this morning I brought up Milton Friedman, the capitalist who wrote the political book. He had exactly this argument. It sounds like a socialist argument, maybe, but like one of the most adamant free market capitalists of the United States said, come on, make a universal basic income, just scrap the whole welfare state. Just give people the money, directly, no more bureaucracies, no more hurdles. And of course he was not at all socialist, but he kind of had the same,
I say to you now, this will don't work. I'm so sorry.
Well, I'm not arguing for it. I just want you to know.
Yeah, I know, but this is what they want to bring. But then you don't have motivation to work.
This is something. This is not it.
Okay, wait, let's go back to the university where you were taking us. University pay for admission, so how many students start the semester, and how good are the grades, therefore we distribute the funds for you. That's where we were, right?
Or how many are studying?
Yeah.
There is kind of education is part of the market. And this is a big question. Should education, should be social work part of the market system? I don't think so. But still, let me go back one point now. In Germany, there's a professor, Götz Werner, from
I know.
Yeah.
From
He really researched on the university in Karlsruhe as well on this basic income thing, and there's a real interesting observation he made. So many people are concerned about if we have got something like that. Are people still willing to contribute? Still willing to get up in the morning to work? Or won't they all lay back lazy in the hammock and just spend the money they get for nothing? This is an idea which everybody he asked only had about the others. Nobody is focusing this idea, if then I lay in the hammock and no. Everybody he asked, every interview he had, every person has got an impulse to contribute something to society. Some people are doing jobs they really don't like to do anymore. That might change. And that might change the conditions under which people are asked or have to work in certain spheres. That might change, of course. And that would be good as well, because this as well will give people dignity back. But that someone has really got the idea, give me the money, I'm going to stay in bed, maybe there's 1%, 2%. Okay. Still, nothing will change in this sphere. These people we're carrying as a society as well right now. And for these people, even then, we give the dignity back that they don't have to beg each month for the money they get.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said before, you can recognize a society on how they handle with their weakest.
Yeah.
And the inability to get up in the morning and to contribute to society is, for is kind of weakness.
Yeah, and actually I think even it can be empowering for people in the same aspect of dignity, because I have worked quite a lot with refugees who came to Belgium really with the willpower to build something there, to contribute to society, who then went into the phase of, man, it's so hard and all the bureaucracy, I want to work, I cannot work, I don't have the language, I'm not accepted anywhere, I need to fulfill this and this and this and this to get to my rights, that then you don't want to get up in the morning anymore because it's so annoying and frustrating to go through this whole process. So
Yeah.
it's actually the reverse effect of all the rules that we have and administrative steps to get to your rights, actually.
No, this is.
Okay, that was still important discussion, I think. It's really to get an idea of how society should be and what should. And this, what you asked, is exactly on the question of the culture of fraternity. Is it getting into communism, each one the same, or is it in we're taking care for each other? And this is sometimes it's real, and depending from where you look, it's looking like this or it's looking like that. It's not right or wrong.
Yeah.
It's kind of a perspective.
For me, it's just a question from where it came, this money. Because it must es muss erwirtschaftet werden in der Wirtschaft. Das heißt, aber wer erwirtschaftet dann dieses Geld für das Unternehmen große Grund? Also das ist ja eigentlich das Problem. Ja.
This was the question. Would you translate it?
Yeah, sure. He's saying, yeah, well, the only question that's important for him was who's actually, from an economic activity, producing the money, the value represented in the money. So there's this money that's being distributed through universal basic income. It comes from somewhere, and that's an important point for our Is that right?
So basically from where this money comes from.
Yeah.
Okay, now just look at the clock as well, and now before we go into in a short break, I would just go a little bit further into waste to quality. And waste to quality has got 12, and this is the most obvious thing, has got 12 fields, 12 aspects. They're looking on an organization to check out if it's really, if it's really having a good quality in what they're doing in the aspect of freedom. And the very first one is the next confession: I can't write nice just wanted to write it in German now. The field 1, it's somehow 9 o'clock on the clock. The field 1, I'll tell you later why it is there. The field 1 is the task. Each community needs clearance, needs an idea of what their task is. What are we there for? This is sometimes, and this might change even, social initiatives or schools who have started many, many years ago. Their goal, their aim might have changed. Their task might have changed. And they have to reflect this. There might be a generational conflict. There might be teachers who are at school since 30 or 40 years, and they've got an idea of Waldorf pedagogy, which the young teachers don't have anymore. And when they don't get in contact and talk about it, it might be quite difficult. So this idea is necessary, and now I'm looking here for my book. Here it is. They need a vision statement. Enlightenment. They need a vision statement, and they have to look at it again and again and again. The vision statement is nothing that's
Static.
Static. It's not static. It's not yet. And you shouldn't put it in stone over the entrance door. Maybe you can print it and hang it in a frame on the wall, but after sometimes you have to look at it again. The vision statement, still the basic ideas, the main ideas, which need in the world did we see to give an answer to? That was Steiner's idea of Waldorf pedagogy years ago. To see a need in the world and to give an answer to this need. But the world changes. And the answers have to change as well. So this is the first step. The second one, and here's got a paper with this English. The second one. Individual responsibility. The next step is to look at the organization of the people who are working together on the same impulse, on the same task. Are they able to get into individual responsibility? Or are they just task fulfillers? If people are just task fulfillers, it's mostly not a guarantee for the best quality. Even for people who are who are taking care for the environment, the farmer, the gardener, and so on, even they should work out of a personal, individual responsibility, because they see something, they get a task, they get into a room and they see something different. And we all hope that they get initiative and do what they see. And not only someone coming here has to clean the bin and to see up there's a bulb, I think it's okay, Bauchmessing, but it's not my job, and going out again. No. Even in these small things, and then quality is coming up. But even more, of course, the biggest fear is you can't make a teacher to a task fulfiller, of course. But this is more and more challenging thing. We find more and more people in our organizations who are fine with being task fulfillers. Some people call them the Generation Z, after the Generation Y and the Generation X and so on. I think that's not true. You have to focus on the whole social environment. To the Generation C belong the parents of the Generation C and so on, and the teachers of the Generation Z. You can't focus on them, on these people. But you find more and more of these people. If they give me a task, I do it and I'm fine. But especially in these spheres, pedagogical and social work, it's hard. For instance, to get back to the example I gave you, you've got such a real hardcore task fulfiller. To ask him, hey, please, could you wake up Timmy? He's going in the room, Timmy, wake up! We're leaving the room. Yeah, Timmy did get up, but that was absolutely no quality. He didn't get an individual responsibility to say, okay, I do it, how do I prepare myself? Even maybe I'm a little bit tired myself and so on, standing in front of the door and really taking care for myself and activating my humor before I enter the room and so on. All this means individual responsibility. And then, in English, it's called the ability. Das Können, the ability to be able to do these things, to know what you do. Of course, this has to be there as well. It is not enough to have real people who are enthusiastic and they're well-meaning and no, they have to be a professional part of it as well. And this professional sphere is so wide, you can't describe it, you can't focus on it, but it has to be, it has to be there. To know, for instance, the diagnostic background of TB, the historical background of TB, to know about the evening before. Shortly to look, maybe, when you're working in such a system, in the documentation of the people who have been there in the evening before, what has made Timmy in the evening? What can I talk to him about? That's all these things, it's professional sphere. It has to be there. Absolutely. And then, I'll go over there. And this is the one, especially in Germany, it's now, I'm going to field number 7. And you will see soon how I do it that way. It's a financial enabling. Financial enabling. In Germany it was called finanzieller Ausgleich. Even in Germany it's a real complicated and spelling word. But this was done by purpose. This means the money, but also all the other resources you have to focus on when you're looking at the task. These two are now on one axis, and they have to be in balance.
No, sorry, I don't read what is under financial. Sorry.
Financial enabling. To enable the things by giving the finances or the other resources. That's meant. And this is here, this is an X, like to bring it in balance. This is something when they started, and still today, you meet in social sphere as well as in Waldorf schools so many enthusiastic people. They're seeing so many tasks, and they're going so far over their borders. That on Thursdays, they've got conferences till 10 or 11 in the evenings and so on. They're giving everything for the class. They're preparing and preparing and preparing. And on the other hand, the financial enabling we talked about, to enable them to live a good life, to be a good teacher, is often not in the right balance. And then to focus it. And this means also the resources of time. There are so many tasks in the community or in school which have to be done. Preparing the conference, preparing the next Christmas sale, Christmas bazaar, and so on. Preparing the next whatever, celebration and so on. All these things, and they're often the same or more or less the same teachers who say, okay, I'll do it as well. There's a personal circle about for the employee work and so on. So there's so much work to do, and the people are saying, okay, I'll do it, and they're getting more and more exhausted. And then you see that it's not in balance. And then, out of the idea of social threefoldness, to make it real in a fraternity way, in a brotherly way, in a siblings way, is, hey, we have to take care for our colleague. We have to take something out of that part to enable this. We have to give him resources, and a resource might be time. And to give someone a resource of time might be less lessons, more spare time during the school day and so on. We take care for each other. We are grateful that someone is taking a task for us, but we all are responsible as a community that he or she can do and fulfill the task in an appropriate manner. This is real, and this, people didn't focus on it. People have used to be on this enthusiastic, I'm going over my borders, and so many communities and so many schools live out of this, what we call in Germany, Selbstausbeutung. I don't know if someone has got the translation.
Like self-exploitation.
Self-exploitation. Self-exploitation, yes. And in modern languages you can also say, if this is not in balance, it's quite sure that it will lead into something like burnout. Either you're going permanently over your borders, you're doing much more than you actually should do, and you get more and more exhausted, and suddenly, someday you've got a breakdown. Or, on the other hand, you see permanently tasks which you can't give an answer to. And every evening you're going home, and you've got in the background, I should. The other way a community could be responsible for the colleague. to say, yeah, there is a task, and then the whole community could say, yeah, there is a task, but we don't have the resources to give to everything an answer. And we can talk about it in here. It's not your personal fault that it doesn't happen. It's part of maybe the government, it's part of 10 of our colleagues are sick, or so COVID was a time that it was quite often. Sickness, many things and so on. So, and even this feeling, I don't manage to do what I should do, leads into burnout as well. So this really taking care of each other out of the gesture of fraternity, of doing it brotherly, working together, taking care of each other. Still, the next one. Has got something to do with the last thing I said. It's protection. We have to talk about in a community, as colleagues, how do we protect each other? How do we protect each other? But, protection means we have to get into agreements. As I just said before, it's not your personal fault if you don't manage to do everything that you see, everything that has to be done. But also to get into agreements which, which make things clear for everybody. On the one hand, we all are free beings and we are communicating and we can talk about and make agreements of how we would like to make things. Before I came here, Jacinta and I have been in contact. She asked me when can I be here, Friday, Saturday, afternoon and so on. So we could make agreements in between us. But still, there was a frame given, a setting given. Afternoon means we would like to start 2:30 in the afternoon and so on. So the setting was given us, was a frame, was a basis on which we could make our agreement. And also even in social initiatives, even in schools and so on, there have to be these settings as well. When do we start in the morning? When does the school start? It's good that it's clear for everybody at school that they don't have to. Imagine where a school hasn't got such an agreement. Each teacher in his classroom is dealing it with his classroom in the afternoon. Okay, fine for now. When will we start tomorrow morning? 8:30. Okay, you're tight. Okay, let's say 8:45, and so on. So then tomorrow we'll make later in the evening and so on. It doesn't work. Also, some of the standards. What do we document? Which things do we make transparent to each other when something happens? In which cases do we talk as colleagues about the topic which is arising? And so on. All these things gives protection to everyone. Protection to get a secureness, to be secure, to be, what's the sphere, what's the environment in which I'm working. And it also, it protects the relation between two people. Two teachers don't have to argue about when will school start tomorrow morning. They've got so many essential topics they have to argue about maybe. That some frame settings, some basic settings are real good to have. They don't have to argue about it. This is given here. And some of these things are given from the outside. For instance, the length of the school lesson, the amount of school lessons for each class, for each grade and so on, is given from the outside. On the one hand, in Germany at least it is so, Depending on the grade, you have to do a certain amount of lessons. But there's no law saying that school is starting at 8 or 7:30 or 7:45. This is something the school community has given itself. Years ago, there was in Germany a big discussion with a lot of schools, lessons on Saturday. I went to school, it was a 6-day school, and then it was a big discussion. Each school had to fight this, and really fight this discussion out between the parents and the students and the pupils and the teachers and so on. Finally, there was an agreement, and this agreement protected everyone to say, okay, depending on which line of the dialogue you have been before, after the agreement was made, for everyone it was clear. No school on Saturday anymore. An agreement, and it's a kind of social protection. And by the way, these COVID things, sometimes exactly this social protection was missing. Too much was left in the sphere of dealing and free agreements and so on.
I have a question. Do you have a way or a method, I don't know how to call it, in ways to quality to arrive to this point, to the agreements?
Yes. It's always, that's what I later wanted to get into. Yes, it's, no, it's okay, it's fine. It's, the agreement is, or the process is always just starting what's really the question we're talking about. And really understanding, collectively understanding what's the question we are focusing on. And to get it clear for everyone. This is a step. Just where do we start? To define the starting point for the discussion. And then in the next step, what will be? What do we want to make clear? What do we want to clarify with this process? Clearance about the process and the goal, and so on. And from then on going in a social process, of course, that you have, it's not easy, of course. And especially in these situations, but in others as well, it's the Mars quality of planetary Mars. That someday there might be either or, and so on. A decision has to be made. And this is sometimes a real difficult process, of course. Even when you usually say we want to make a conclusive or collective decisions. We don't want to vote. We want decisions who have to be consensus decisions, right? But there are methods to do it. As in the beginning, we started moving here in the room. You can do it as well. Who is for school on Saturday? This point. Who is on school Saturday? No school Saturday at this side of the room. And then bring people in dialogue. Why are you standing here? What are the reasons? Why are you standing there? Can you understand? Did you understand? Could you hear what he or she was saying and so on? Would there be an argument for you to get a little bit closer to here? But still, even if the whole community is standing there and one is over there, not to say, okay, we're all here, you're there, forget it, finish, no. Still to say, what do you need? What do you need to come closer to us? That's a process, that's a social process. But then, at some point, there might be necessary to make a decision, of course. And they're not always easy. Okay. Might not be easy, but it can be. That the whole community says, okay, we've tried, but we don't reach you, sorry. We step forward. And think, what offers can we make you to follow us? And what offers can we make you in the next process, maybe to agree with us anyway? But now we think the process is at a point, now we step forward. This is kind of more mass quality. But then still to say, okay, and now what do we need to for the next steps, and so on. The reflection is one important part. Yeah, it's called the social, in basic quality, we call it the social 3-step, triple step. Preparing an action. Really, what's the question? What's the goal? What do we need? Act, and then reflect. A month later, 3 months later, and so on. How was it? How have been our expectations been, and so on. This can be for a discussion for the whole group. It can be a delegation of the group. We make a delegation for you to prepare our school fest in summer. Okay, what do we need? How many resources? Which abilities do we need? Which knowledges do we need? Do we have to make some agreements? Do you need some protections? Is everything clear? Is it clear? Is your budget clear? The financial budget as well. Don't spend more money than we have talked about. Protection, budget is clear, and so on. Okay, now everything is clear. Now we can make a delegation. You are the good group. You please do it for us. Thank you very much. They start, they do it. Summerfest is over. And then, after a while, we look back at the Summerfest. How was it? How was Summerfest? How was it for you to fulfill this task for us? What did support you? What was not clear? What went good? What did not go so good, and so on. Reflection. What can we learn for the next time? And finally, to say, okay, thank you very much that you did it for us. Now we take the task back to you. And last one. This is the main process of waste to quality to deal with these questions. In every moment. It's also from the individual co-worker in a yearly reflection meeting with the colleagues. Not about hierarchy, but about working together. How do you feel in your task? What do you need that supports you? Is there anything clear? Okay, now let's look in the next year. What do you need? Can we support you? Is there anything that we can have to make clear before you can start in the next good year, and so on? And then, okay, now it's clear. And now you're like in a ship, away from the shore. Now you're absolutely independent to fulfill your task. And this is now, before we make a break, the last two fields. This is called, it's called trust. Very important. You can, about protections and agreements and rules and so on, you can make many things. But still, there's so many aspects, especially in social and educational and pedagogical and teaching work. Exactly, that's what we don't want. We don't put too much in this protection field. That means that there must be trust. That the colleagues know, okay, we have clearance about the task, we are sure. We've realized, we know our colleague as a person with real individual responsibility. We know about his or her abilities. He's qualified to fulfill the task. He knows about the resources he or she's got. He or she knows about the agreements, about the rules, and so on. The spoken and unspoken rules, by the way. There's so much in the cultural backgrounds often in places. We should. And we trust him or her, even when not everything is clear. The example when the teacher realizes my class is completely out of order, I have to do something absolutely different than I usually should. I focus on something completely different to bring my class back in order. And the others say, okay, when this teacher made this decision, it will be right. We support him or her at this point. This is trust. And then it is not necessary for us to prove us that it was the right decision. No. We trust you, we know you as a colleague. And these things, you've had this morning in Gothic Cathedral, the picture is as well a little bit like this. Like, you know, these Gothic cathedrals have been the one with these stones in the middle who hold everything together.
Keystone.
Keystone.
Capstone.
Capstone, keystone. Right. And the keystone of this is it's a freedom. These enable that this keystone of the freedom won't fall down. They are holding this keystone. On the one hand, from the task about the individual responsibility, about the ability on the one hand, on the other hand, knowing about the resources, knowing about the agreements and the rules, but still accompanied by trust. This gives you the freedom to work in the moment as you feel, as the moment needs it. These, since by focusing on these 6 aspects, will be the space to work in a real good quality. We don't focus on the ISO standard of what's happening in here. Yeah, this is the main difference. All the other quality management systems ask about proof as and document the quality of what's happening here. Waste to quality, no. We give you answers to all these questions and then we are sure there will be happening something really great. And if it doesn't, it asks questions to one of these 6 fields, or later on makes a circle with the 12 complete, but I think for now.
Just a very short question. Can you advise a book where we can read about it more? Ways of quality.
This book is in preparation. It's true. It's waste of quality. You can download it on the internet. It's a Verfahrenshandbuch, handbook of waste of quality. But still, we are now, even in waste to quality, we are right now at a generational change point. The founder of waste to quality, Udo Hermannsdorfer, living here, right next to the Goetheanum, he is. We've asked him if he could come here as well, but he's not so fit anymore. He doesn't give barely any lectures anymore. For him, it was always most important that waste to quality is not becoming a method, is not becoming a tool, but is becoming a perspective and a view on the world, and it has got. It's only going through the people who are working with it. It was for him so important to get into these questions and out of this, as colleagues and so on. And for him it was, it always gave, once in a while, situations when schools or places made something like checklists. So, clearance about the task, check. Everything fine with your own task, check.
Yeah, I did it actually in my head about my career. It's okay.
Looking at field 1 and field 7, we've got now many tasks to do, but only a resource of 56 minutes left. So, still, I would like to take half a minute. How is it so far for you? Is it fine with you as we work till now?
Yeah.
Okay, because I know it was a little bit too much lecture from more than I wanted, but still. Okay, so quite quickly to give you the complete overview, and then I would like to invite you to a short group work, a real short one, but still to complete the picture of the 12 fields. There are here on the top we've already seen the two, as we said in Vegas quality before, the formative fields. These are the aspects you can focus on in a quite concrete way on these aspects. And down there, below this line, there are the 5 movement fields. These fields depend on these on top. As the field 1 depends to field 7, as being in balance, the task and the resources. The individual responsibility leads in a good organization to the aspect out of responsibility, out of insight. To get an insight of what's really necessary, not only to get told, not only to get explained, to get a real insight, erkenntnis as a process. Even when you've got a real erkenntnis, when you've got a real insight of the needs of an organization or the needs of an individual you're working with, you're building a relationship to, then you can create a completely new responsibility. It's a responsibility completely on its own. When you do this, getting an insight and then creating this new responsibility out of it, it leads to individual development. When you have done this, you're not the same as you have been before. You're never the same as you have been before, but this is real, focused individual development. But it still can be focused from this there to there. The ability in the individual development. It might be that a group wants to delegate some of their colleagues to challenge a task, to take care of a task for the whole community. And then they see some of the abilities are not there yet. Leads to individual development. They might need a course, they might need get some teaching, they might need get some time and so on. They need time for individual development to fulfill this task. Depends. But still, comes from this way. And when you've got these things, then individual development after a while, then you can really, it's a deeper aspect of the same as the freedom in here, you can act out of present need. Gegenwartsgemäßes Handeln. What needs this moment right now? With a professional background, professional basis out of which you decide what you're doing right now. And this might be creative, this might be spontaneous and so on. But sometimes situations need a paradox intervention, for instance. And this needs some professional abilities, that needs some background and so on. So everyone would expect I do that now, but I do the completely different thing because I think this moment needs it as well. But this as well, it's for the whole community as well. To ask, here at the task and the freedom, the task or a community is changing, as we mentioned before. So what are we focusing right now? The present need. What is needed right now in the moment? And this is the point where the generational conflicts are appearing sometimes. But these who are long in the community, in the school, or wherever, they bring ideas. And some try to develop the ideas. And this, to focus really, how do we deal with it, and how do we step forward? And these conflicts feel to the sphere of individual and community. Suddenly it has got something to do with me and the community or the colleagues I'm working with. It's an important part of the quality process to focus on this. How is this? Are we in connection? I brought you something. In Germany, I can tell by heart. Heilsam ist nur, wenn im Spiegel der Menschenseele sich bildet die ganze Gemeinschaft. Und in der Gemeinschaft lebt der Einzelseele Kraft. In English, one translation I found, there's many translations. The healthy social life is found when in the mirror of each human being, the whole community finds its reflection. And when in the community, the virtue of each one is living. And this is a quite often a difficult process. The virtue, die Tugenden of each one are living in a community. Sometimes it's really so hard to stand it and to bear it, the individual virtues of my co-workers, because they're so completely different than I am. But the whole organization is gaining a real benefit out of it. Not we are as we are, and we're doing here in the same way, but we are the community of the people who are here. In Germany, in Tental, when I've been there, we're working with co-workers, with voluntary co-workers from all over the world every year. And there's some waves. Some in the 2000s, many from Brazil came. And when you've got 15 young men from Brazil, you can't create a village life without playing soccer. So we've made goals, and in the middle of the village, on the lawn and so on, and we all played soccer. 3 years later, people from Asia came, and we've made a huge circus project. And so each individual brings his ideas and impulses, and it's a real benefit for the whole organization to be so open-minded, and not to say, no, we're not a soccer playing community, please do something else. No. There have been great soccer players, and by the way, in this year, we've won the tournament of the village in Dubai. 50% players. Each year we've had the red light in the end, and this year and this also is connected to this field, trust and individual and community. Has got something to do. To be so in contact with each other and to allow the other one to be different has got to do with trust, and not a trust in a way of you have proven that I can trust you, but that I see in you a human being with all these aspects so far. So I think I can trust you. And even when you do the things completely different than I would do them, it might be fine. And if I still think it's not fine, it's got something to do with me, maybe, not with you. So this is the trust in the individual community. And then finally, when you're really going into this process, it's a question of community as destiny. As the community, and then you might be, at least now you might realize why it has got something to do with anthroposophy. The community I'm working with, I'm living with, has got something to do with my destiny. What do I bring that I came to that place, to these people? What might we create for future times at that place? Which tasks might we collectively in common have to fulfill? All these questions. And this, strange enough, has really got something to do with this kind of protection. That means we have to get in the sphere of agreements to work properly together. It's not just by fun. It's not just a creative moment. There's a real basis why we are here now. And it's connected with a responsibility to face these tasks out. So there's got a lot to do to say that, still a word missing, it has to be verbindlich.
It has to be,
Fully.
binding.
Binding, yeah. There's a certain binding, if I take it seriously, there's a certain binding that I'm part of the community. And this binding means I have to be in contact with the others in a way more than, okay, this way, that way, no. Real to it. And to close the circle in this way, community as destiny, as a binding community, field 12 becomes field 1. What is our common task? When you've done this process and looking each one in the eyes of each other, what is our common task? Focusing and coming from that background. That might change because you have that point, you have that point, and so on. You have an insight, you have one insight, each one has one insight. It's bringing new impulses and so on. It might change, yes. And then the vision statement might change. And then the vision statement, but this is the real quality. But then you've got a community of working people, of together working people, which are really willing to give an answer on the needs of the world. And if this happens, you've got a kind of quality which you would never reach with ISO or standards. That was very, very quick now. Usually these fields take a long time because there's a real depth in it. Some other aspects now. Why did I start, not me, why do we start here with a task on the 9 o'clock field? It is because someone, after these fields have been discovered or developed, by the way, in the process in the 1990s, there have been so many aspects about watching and quality and outer aspects, inner aspects, and so on. It has been sometimes 16, 17, 18 possible fields. And then there was an impact, real of Ulrich Hermannsdorf, we had an impact overnight, and he realized there are 12, and these 12 have got something to do with the zodiac. They belong together. And so, now I should have prepared with the zodiac signs in English. But this is the Widder.
Aries.
Aries? Okay. This is where it starts, and then it goes round through the zodiac.
Individual
Yeah.
responsibility is Taurus.
Taurus?
Is that Taurus? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it goes that
Go
way.
round.
Yeah. Development out of it. Responsibility out of insight is Scorpio and so on. And then there's another possibility to deepening. There are these Stimmungen Rudolf Steiner gave to these 12 signs of the zodiac. There you can really get into it. And then you've got these process steps to each one of these fields, these 7 process steps, as I said before. Always a little bit as it's written up there, and this sign going into preparing, acting, and getting out. Depending on which field you are, it's a different gesture, but this gesture has got so much to do with the planets. The Venus is a mirror of what has been, the Mars of the active, the Mercury of the observing and checking and getting into the different things and so on. So there's so many possibilities to deepen these things. That's why I like it so much. Okay, but this can't be a complete seminar about waste equality. This is clear. Normally in the beginning, each field takes 1 day when we give a course about it. And, but still, this is the big connection in a rush. But now I would invite you with a small work with the group. And still, as I said in the beginning, I mean, it's clear that the protection is a legal sphere. We've got agreement, it's fine for everyone. The economical sphere, the financial, it's clear we have to deal with it. We have to deal with the resources we've got in a good way, and we have to take care for them. It's all in there. These aspects, and this makes it so connected to real life. And this makes it so connected to create communities in a responsible and in a livable way, even when they've got no hierarchy. Not a boss who is giving, that's the idea and that's the way I do it. No, we together want to find out how we do it. And then we need aspects to create and form the life and the work together. And therefore, it's real helpful. But still, it's not a method, it's kind of an attitude. If you work with it, you can stand yourself in the middle, and then out of these, you can watch, you can look at the world, at the things you see in the world through these glasses of each field. It's a kind of an attitude, not a method. But still, as we've seen in the first half this afternoon, you can say about the basic income, is it communistic or is it community care? Both views might be possible depending from where you look at it. It's not the right or wrong, but still to look at the situation, what needs this situation, what needs this colleague right now. An example from a Scottish community I've worked with, they've discussed about the money they want to give as a surplus in Christmas. As they came to idea, each one became something different. Because the one has had his parents, the village next door, he didn't need a bus ticket, another one came from New Zealand. Both had the same need to visit their families. So the one became £1,000 and the other one for 50. But both needs were answered. They took care for both needs, and it wasn't the amount of money, it was a need they focused on. And it was a difficult process. Do we want that he can take so much money out of our community from everyone, and is it fine for him? And he said, yeah, it's fine for me, because I want to visit my family, it's okay. I reached the goal, and But it's a point where how you can look at the world. Now, I would like to invite you to get in a whispering groups, right where you sit, 3, 4, 5, and ask you, where in your so far life have you maybe experienced situation where acting out of freedom was enabled for you? Was, yes, of course, positively thinking, always. When did the people in your surrounding gave you the chance to say, here, every aspect is clear, now do as you think. It might be a small thing at school, it might be that you're here now and have got the chance to do a study here, whatever. Talk about it, each one shortly thinking, and then 1-2 minutes, each one giving an example to the other ones, and say, 4 of you in the group. That's good. And then you've got 12 minutes.
Can you repeat the question?
Pardon?
Can you repeat the question?
Where in your so far life can you remember a situation in which you could act out of freedom in this way? Where the freedom was given to you, or was enabled to you, was allowed you, but it's a wrong vocabulary. Freedom can't be allowed. Okay?